What would you do if your only friend is depressed, and when you try to cheer up, things only get more and more depressing till people end up dead? Today I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the deaths in Takopi's original sin.
This cute little fluffball here has no idea that he's about to become a murderer in the next few days. His name is Takopi, he's an alien from planet Chappie, and he was sent to Earth to spread love and happiness. But he's going to be the reason why this girl named Marina goes missing permanently, and we're about to find out why. After school, a girl walks up to these 3 drainage pipes and asks if anyone's there. Her name is Shizuka, and this is her first encounter with Takopi, Mr. Fluffball, and as soon as he sees Shizuka, he lets out a very famous phrase, "I'm hungry." He just landed on Earth from his planet, but the army almost captured him, and he has had nothing to eat. Shizuka shares a piece of her bread, and the hungry alien gobbles down the food. That doesn't seem like such a great plan. Why would you do that? You just failed the survival test of any movie. You ran into an unidentified talking object, or UTO. And she not only engaged in conversation with it, she gave it her food. I'm not gonna do that. I want my food. I'm hungry. Plus, why would you do that? You're talking to a talking pink creature. This is not the norm, so I'm gonna turn around and go home and not ask any questions. You see a freaking alien? And you're pretty darn sure you're not on a movie set? How about you just leave, alright? Do the 360, go back home, and because I'm so darn patriotic, call the cops, the feds, the FBI, CIA, anybody who is in charge of alien investigations will get to hear of this immediately. And if there's anything to it, they will quietly show up in those unidentified vans, take the creature away, and I can just kiss it goodbye and will be none the wiser. Because I don't want a UTO in my country. More specifically, I don't want a UTO near me. The famous words of Tony Stark, Earth is closed. Sadly, after giving the creature food, Shizuka doesn't leave, she just stays and talks. Why are you talking with a freaking alien? Takopi shows her its cute toys and does party tricks, but she's not impressed. Flying doesn't even begin to solve half the problems in her life. Instead, she walks away because she needs to buy a writing board, and therefore she promises to check on Takopi the next day. But our new arrival on planet Earth is too dense to realize what she's saying. He thinks she's not impressed because she's flown before, so the next day, Shizuka shows up, and then she immediately grabs him and goes into hiding, and Takopi thinks they're playing a fun game, but in reality, she's hiding from her classmates because they're bullies. They gossip and make fun of her as they leave, and when they're gone, Takopi brings out a camera because he's determined to pay Shizuka back for her bread, and what better way to pay her back than by taking a selfie. After the picture, she goes to buy another writing board because her bully classmates destroyed the one she bought. Takopi promises to make her happier the next day, so he keeps introducing her to more and more of his weird gadgets from his planets, and Shizuka seems to enjoy it until day 6, when she decides to go home earlier than usual. When Takopi asks why, she says that she has to feed her dog, Chappie. Then she goes deep into enemy territory by invading Takopi's home. Inside, Shizuka explains that her mom is out for work as a escort. Takopi is obviously oblivious. Shizuka gives him a fake explanation. But when he asks about her dad, Shizuka says she doesn't have one. And the fluffball thinks humans only need a mother to be born. Later that night, Shizuka talks about how close she is to Chappie because he's the only member of the family that has always been there for her. She knows she can go on with life as long as he's by her side. The next day, Shizuka shows up to their meeting spot battered and bruised. Takopi, because he just doesn't know things because he's never been to planet Earth, thinks she's wearing makeup. In her hand, Shizuka holds Chappie's neck collar. She tells Takopi that she had a fight with her friend, but the creature doesn't know the meaning, and instead he brings out this cute ribbon and tells her that if she ties her hand and her friend's hand with the ribbon, they'll become friends again. For the first time, Shizuka is actually interested in one of his useless toys. She tells him to give the ribbon to her. Takopi is reluctant, but Takopi's a simp who wants to make Shizuka smile, so he gives it to her and lets her go. But Takopi can't shake the gut feeling that something's wrong, so after pacing around for a bit like a dude who's waiting for his turn to take a dump, he finally decides to go and check on her. When he arrives at the house, he finds her dangling midair, using the very ribbon, that stupid, happy ribbon. And because he's so dense, it takes him legitimately 5 minutes to realize that Shizuka is dead. Takopi is now clearly proven to be a, well, I want to say idiot, but I can't really blame an idiot from another planet that doesn't know how to read the room or read the emotions of humans. If I have to blame anything, I honestly would blame its superiors, the ones that sent him here, because never in the history of foreign missions would this kind of blunder truly be made. Look, in military, for instance, there's a bunch of guys that show up all beaming with patriotism. They're ready to serve the country. Yeah, they're eager to serve, but they never send them immediately to the war front. They undergo training, pre-deployment training. It challenges them with specific conditions that they might encounter in their new environment, such as cultural awareness, language skills, mission specific tasks. The minute Takopi hit our screens, it became painfully obvious that he was, I don't know what the frick he was doing, maybe shooting pen darts in space class all the way through his training, because he knows next to nothing about the planet that he's come to. Shizuka is a victim of bullying, abandonment, and a host of other things I don't want to even think about. But Mr. Happy here can only think about stupid selfies. Seriously, if you're in charge of pre-deployment training, the people over in Planet Happy, honestly, should never send someone like Takopi out. You gotta make sure he learns as much about the planet and the customs and how to read people before sending him. It's a critical mistake, because now our girl is dead. Because even if they were short on staff and were forced to deploy him, so in this situation, I don't even really blame Happy, but I blame the ones who sent him, because he was so unprepared and couldn't even understand what was going on until it was, well, obviously too late. Now we see Takopi beginning to panic as he realizes that, oh shoot, Shizuka is really dead. And he remembers that all this happened because he didn't follow the rules. So he decides to fix everything, but he's not Superman or the Flash, and he can't rip a hole in the space-time continuum. So what does he do? He just rushes back to his hideout, gets his camera, and just takes a picture, because apparently this camera has a special feature. Any picture taken is frozen in the exact moment, and a happy end can always rewind time back to the point where the picture was taken. So Takopi does it, and our girl comes back to life, or more accurately, hasn't died in this timeline yet. But now Takopi has a new mission: stop the future from happening and stop Shizuka from dying. And that's when he starts to follow Shizuka to school. It was one thing for him to hear about people that she knows being mean to her. It's a whole nother thing to see it in person. One of the girls from the park, named Marina, he learns is the centerpiece of Shizuka's sorrows. Marina and the rest of Shizuka's classmates can't see Takopi though, because he disguised himself as a flower. As he watches, he tries to figure out why she kicked the bucket willingly. But like everybody else that treats symptoms instead of causes, Takopi attacks what he can see. So he goes back in time again and helps Shizuka with her homework. And then he protects her from the stupid games, and again and again and again and again and again. And finally then, though, he feels like he saved the day. But his dense brain finally picks up on the weird activity between Marina and Shizuka. He thinks it's a fight like the Happians have back in his home planet. So he decides to help them reconcile. The next day, Marina's friends tell Shizuka to meet Marina during lunch, but she goes to hide in the toilet. Takopi encourages her to meet with Marina, but Shizuka is too scared, so he decides to go in her place. And he transforms himself into Shizuka, and then he runs off before she can say anything. And then when he meets up with Marina, she's not nice. Marina hits him, kicks him, and she beats the fear of God into Takopi. But when Takopi remembers that he's on a mission to stop her death, he summons the courage and asks Marina to stop the fight. And that's when Marina reveals the cause of the problem. Shizuka's mother stole Marina's dad from Marina's mom. She escorted him, if you get what I mean. And poor Marina has been traumatized because she wanted her dad back. She wanted her family life back. And that's never happening. After getting stabbed in the eye as Shizuka, Takopi goes back in time again. And sadly, in this new one, he doesn't disguise himself to take the beating, because rightfully so, he's now traumatized. But then he finally summons the courage and he disguises himself as Shizuka and does what he should have done. He involves the teachers. And when they get out of school, Shizuka thinks Takopi heaves a sigh of relief because he feels he saved her. But in the next few days, while they're busy having a cozy, vulnerable moment, Marina's hiding behind a block, watching, and she heads back home to plot what to do next to Shizuka. Because at home, Marina's mother is waiting for her. Her mom is having a hard time dealing with the abandonment. So guess who's suffering the brunt of the old lady's abandonment issues? Poor Marina. And the next day, Marina ignores Shizuka, and Shizuka starts to feel happy because she thinks things are finally getting better. That night, she takes Chappie for a walk, but while talking with Takopi, Takopi realizes that in their original timeline, this was the night before she died. And Takopi remembers that Chappie was not with Shizuka on the day she died. And that's when he finally asks the question, why was Chappie not with Shizuka on that day? Before he can get an answer, Marina shows up, and she bullies Shizuka in front of Chappie, and because a dog is a man's best friend, Chappie bites the hand with which Marina slapped Shizuka. And then she immediately calls the locals and reports that Chappie's wild, and that's when the locals quickly call animal control to take Chappie away. And Takopi sees Shizuka crying and realizes that his mission is not succeeded yet. So he goes back again and again. Except every time he goes back, Marina finds a way to meet up with Shizuka. No matter how many times they change their route, they always meet up with Marina, and she makes animal control take Chappie away. At first, Takopi thinks it's random, till he finds out that Marina is stalking Shizuka. But even going back in time, Takopi can't change anything. At the animal shelter, Shizuka's mom tells her that Chappie has gone to live with their dad, and maybe one day she will see the dog again. But when they get home, Shizuka has become numb. She doesn't respond to Takopi, and in school she doesn't say a word, while Marina lies about Chappie being wild. The class rep, this nerd called Azuma, stops Marina from taunting Shizuka anymore. Except Except after school, Marina meets Shizuka and tells her to come along if she wants to see Chappie. But Marina leads her into the woods, and that's where things get real. And when they're deep into the woods, Marina throws all her anger and her backpack on Shizuka, and Marina tells Shizuka bluntly that Chappie's dead. And then she gives Shizuka the greatest tongue lashing with words that should never have come out of a child's mouth. And when she's done, Shizuka's in a pool of her own tears, and Marina finally feels better about her twisted self. Takopi watches from the shadows. When he sees things going too far, he jumps at Marina with the time reversing camera, and when he hits her, she falls on the floor, and she doesn't stand up. Yeah, our happy looking little fluff ball just committed murder because he did not realize just how freaking strong he is. First off, there was no reason for Chappie to die, and killing Marina should never have been on the table. The fact that he could not figure out a way to stop Chappie's death is proof that he still needs to go back to training, because we figured out that no matter what route we take, Marina is going to be stalking somewhere around the corner, waiting for us so that she can carry out her plan. So the solution is easy. Chappie doesn't go out. Chappie doesn't go for a walk. I know it's basic, but sometimes the best solution is the most obvious one. If you never go on the road with Chappie, you never run into Marina, and Chappie will not be sent away. But even if Shizuka demands that we take Chappie for a walk, all you gotta do, Takopi, is just rush home, disguise as Shizuka while she's still in class, and take Chappie inside and lock him in one of the rooms for a bit. He'll be upset for a bit, but he'll live, and so will Shizuka. And then he will also take a piece of Chappie's hair and transform himself into Chappie to wait for Shizuka. And when she comes, they will go on the walk together. Marina's plan rides on Chappie getting offended when Marina bullies Shizuka. If Takopi is disguised as Chappie, knowing Marina's plan, he doesn't attack her. Instead, he protects and comforts Shizuka by doing cute dog things like licking her face. And when she sees that doesn't work, she will have to give up on her plan, or potentially even reveal just how twisted she is to the public and people around her, because I imagine it's entirely possible that she would spaz out over her plan just not working. Now the best part is that this transformation can even end Marina's reign of terror without killing her. Instead of whacking her, all you gotta do is change into Shizuka at the exact moment when they're alone. Marina's a lot of things, but she's not very courageous, and that's why she would get spooked when she sees two Shizukas alone with her in the woods. She'll most likely run off until everyone knows Shizuka is a witch. It would bring negative popularity, but at least it would keep her off of her back till graduation, and most importantly, nobody is gonna end up dead. Takopi panics as best as he can because he's never killed, and he decides to use the camera to go back and fix things. And that's when he realized, oh shoot, his camera's bad. Turns out it got broken, so there's no more do-overs. Shizuka then shows her brightest smile ever and thanks Takopi for getting her problems gone once and for all. And this one thing is gonna change everything forever. Shizuka grabs Takopi, but just as they're about to leave, Azuma-kun shows up and is worried about Shizuka and decides to follow them. And when he sees the dead body of Marina, he's, a kid, he has a panic attack. And when he turns on his nerd glasses and analyzes the death, he points out that no one would believe Shizuka if she says an alien killed Marina. And that's when Shizuka asks for his help with disposing of the body. Azuma puts on his stud face and decides to be Shizuka's hero. So Azuma gets to work trying to figure out what toys Takopi has and what uses they are. He finds this pod chamber that can grow in size and stores whatever you put inside. So he does the next logical thing. He stuffs Marina's dead body in the pod and they bury it in the earth. Not exactly that great. They don't even dig it 6 feet. They just give her a crappy burial and a grave only 2 feet deep. Will it come back to bite them? No way! That was sarcasm. After they're done, Takopi changes into Marina and Takopi heads home to Marina's house. But what's waiting home is not a good thing. He meets Marina's mom and dad quarreling, but as usual, his dumb brain doesn't realize they're fighting because he's too innocent to know what a fight is. The next day, Shizuka wants to head to Tokyo to find Chappie because her dad lives in Tokyo, but Azuma says they can't leave yet. So he just gives them a timeline for summer holiday, and that's when his brother Junya shows up. But as Junya leaves, Azuma goes on a jealous rant, and it turns out Mr. Prim and planned over here is just a jealous baby brother. When Shizuka hears him rant, she advises him to steal his brother's precious ring. And when she encourages him with those puppy eyes, he just decides to do it. And that night, Takopi accompanies him on their stealing mission. They almost get caught, but in the nick of time, they fly out of Junya's room, and Takopi has to hold Azuma in the air. Except, however, they fail to get the ring, and that triggers Azuma's inferiority issues. And despite being so young, Azuma has been enjoying the downside of a smart elder brother since he was born. When he heads back to Shizuka without the ring, thinking she would be disappointed in him for failing, she laughs at him, but that makes him cry. For the next few days, the trio have fun. Even Marina's real friends start noticing something's off. And that's not all. The 2-foot grave is starting to suffer from erosion. Meanwhile, Takopi tells Azuma all about the cool stuff on his planet, but when Azuma asks him to go and bring some of them, Takopi says he can't go back to his planet. And what's worse is that he can't remember why. And that's when he makes a big mistake at home. When Marina's dad asks if Marina would like to come live with him, Takopi answers she would. After dear old dad leaves, Takopi gets his first taste of Marina's beatings, because Marina used to be her little pet stooge. And therefore, by agreeing to visit her father, Takopi Takopi already exposed himself for the fraud that he is. Marina's mother, after a proper beating, exclaims that Takopi's not her daughter, she wants her daughter back. And just like that, the layers of the facade are beginning to fall apart. And while Takopi is busy feeling guilty for impersonating Marina, a group of hikers find Marina's real body. And the next day, Azuma breaks the news that the gig is up, but he's the only one that seems to be concerned or affected by it. And at home, the nerd boy becomes a shadow of himself. And that's not all, because at school, the cops show up for an investigation. And really, all that's left is for Azuma to carry a placard that says guilty and place it on his head. When they head to the playground, Takopi reveals his newfound emotional turmoil, but Azuma shuts him up because they're in too deep and Marina's body's already been found. But Takopi presses on and encourages him is that all they need to do is tell the truth. However, while the boys are having their moral crisis, Shizuka casually asks what they're planning their trip to Tokyo, because summer's almost here. And as soon as Azuma feels needed by Shizuka, he throws away all morality and decides he's gonna make it work. At home, Junya tries to check on Azuma with the whole police investigation thing, being the good big brother that he is, but Azuma acts just as guilty and runs away at the first chance he gets. But Junya can already tell that something's wrong. And meanwhile, the kids tell the investigating officers that Marina was acting weird, and before she died, she was sucking up to Shizuka, because they think Shizuka was blackmailing her. When the cops hear this, they go to Shizuka's house, but she basically pleads the fifth, except unlike Shizuka, Azuma doesn't do things that well. His grades tank, his mother basically gives up on him, because when she gives him the pancakes he's been craving, he thinks it's because she finally cares about him and not just the perfect Junya. Therefore, he tries to talk to her about everything, and sadly, before he can spill the tea, she walks away and tells him he's useless. And this breaks Azuma. While he's busy crying his heart out, Shizuka shows up with the most bizarre request. She tells Azuma that the police is inviting her for questioning over the summer, but if she goes, she won't be able to find Chappie at her dad's place. So get this, she gives Azuma Takopi's murder's camera and tells him to go turn himself in and take the fall for her. Azuma feels like Shizuka needs him, so he does it. After a few days of emotional turmoil, Azuma turns himself in, and he's ready to head down to the station. But as he sneaks out of his house, he runs into Junya, and they have a moment where Junya's like, no, I'm gonna do it. But Junya just does a bunch of mushy care about some deep, buff talk, no jutsu crap to get him to spill the tea. And that's when he learns that his brother's been going through things. He hugs him and they cry and it's all great. And he tells him he's gotta cut ties with the twisted, devilish Shizuka. Well, this is messed up. If Junya wasn't around, oh my gosh, Azuma would be toast. The moment they tried to bury Marina's corpse, honestly, those guys made a big mistake there. Takopi, Azuma guys, listen to me. Let an old pro show you how to do it. What? Stop looking at me like that. The first thing they need to do is not bury the body. Don't do that. Anything can happen, just like they didn't predict the hikers or the weather. Things happen. If there's a body, there will always be a chance the body can be discovered. So what are you gonna do? Burn it. Oh my gosh, so heartless. Shut up. Hear me out. You're all alone in the woods. Azuma and Shizuka have the time to leave Takopi alone in the woods and head out to find the shovel they used in digging a grave. So how about you use that time instead of getting a shovel to get some gas, a lighter? It'd be nasty, but guess what? The trace will be gone, and be extra careful. Put the body into the pod and set it in fire in the pod. That way, a lot of the smoke will be trapped inside the pod, because I mean, look, you can't kill her anymore. She's already dead. So to top it off, before you light this puppy up, just leave a small hole in for air. So that way the fire can keep getting oxygen until she's burnt to a crisp. Then you just gotta sift around, find the teeth, and get rid of those. And on top of that, Takopi did not need to do the impersonating thing, because if he hadn't been traipsing around doing stuff as Shizuka, probably no one would be suspecting her right now. Like, when Marina's mom notices that her daughter's missing, she would have gone and made a formal report to the cops, but the body's gone. The case would honestly end up in an unsolved folder forever. After Junya and Azuma make up, the news gets out that Azuma was involved in Marina's death, and the community does not take it well, and Junya loses his college scholarship, and their mom's perfect pharmacy gets cancelled, socially speaking. And while it's getting cancelled, Shizuka notices that Azuma doesn't show up anymore, and instead of being bothered, she realizes that it's summer, so she's gonna go visit her dad in Tokyo. The next morning, Shizuka wakes up before her mom sneaks out of the house and boards the next ship to Tokyo. She arrives at the skyscraper, which is supposed to be her dad's house, but what she finds inside is, well, you'll see. She climbs the stairs, excited to see her dad and get Chappie back. When she reaches the floor, a man comes to the door and answers with 2 kids. Shizuka immediately realizes that it's her dad, and so she asks for Chappie. But this guy's trying to live a quiet, peaceful life with his new family. And that's why when his other daughter asks him who Shizuka is and why she's calling him dad, he denies knowing her. And to make matters worse, her dad does have a dog, but it's not Chappie. And Shizuka's fragile heart is broken, and therefore she swears revenge against him, but it's not just any kind of revenge. Shizuka thinks that her stepsisters ate Chappie, so she decides to gut their stomachs open to confirm her dog is in there. Takopi tries to discourage her and tell her that they should go home, but the girl's already deranged, and she interpreted what Takopi said as Takopi's not gonna help her, so she decides to do it alone. But as soon as Takopi sees her deranged eyes, he realizes he's seen those exact same eyes elsewhere. Because when Shizuka raises her hand to hit Takopi with a rock, that's when his trauma comes flooding back. Turns out, Mr. Fluffball here landed on Earth, and it was a cute blonde girl that found him, and her name was Marina. In this reality, she's the ostracized kid because of a mark she got from her mother's whooping. And that's not all. Back home, her mom's a drunk, and she's on the receiving end of some serious trauma. In his half-wit way,
Takopi helps Marina get a boyfriend in this timeline,
and it's none other than Azuma. They hang out, become close, and Marina invites him home to see her mom. When Marina's mom hears that her daughter might be into a serious relationship, she pulls out all the stops, cleans the house, and gets ready for a feast, except it doesn't happen. Because that evening, just before Azuma accompanies her to her house, he runs into Shizuka. She's a new kid who left the hood many years ago. And Azuma and Shizuka immediately click, and while they're having their mushy date, things are turning into blood and gore in Marina's house. To make matters worse, Takopi isn't there to help her save Marina because he goes to fetch Azuma for her. When Takopi gets home, he meets the room like a hurricane has just passed through. Inside, he sees Marina in tears, holding a glass shard of her mom's body, and something catches his attention. She says she should have killed Shizuka back when they were in 4th grade, and that's all that he needs to hear. He figures that to save Marina and stop her from going through the horrible future, he's gotta kill Shizuka. So he heads back to Planet Happy, breaks their rules, and sends himself back in time. But on his way back to the past, he forgets and ends up falling in love with Shizuka that he returned to the past to kill. And that night, Takopi finds Azuma in the present timeline and tells his story to him, but Azuma can't understand Takopi, and Takopi wants them to find Shizuka together because after she gave Takopi a beating with the rock, he passed out and she disappeared. So now even Takopi doesn't know where she's gone. But Azuma says he can't help because he's got issues of his own. His mom's health is failing because her pharmacy has been socially canceled and she's dealing with a lot. Except Takopi holds his hands and throws a tantrum because he can't understand why he still wants to see Shizuka happy despite almost dying at her hands. Takopi knows she's bad news, but he can't help wanting to see her happy. Azuma laughs at him and explains that he's still a novice in dealing with humans because they can be both good and bad at the same time. He thanks Takopi for the fun they had together, and that's when he notices that Azuma's eyes had changed. His eyes are now shining and are no longer dull and depressed. But before leaving, he makes Takopi promise that if he ever rewinds time again with his Happy Planet time machine, he should find the old Azuma, and encourages him to fight with Junior more. Takopi spends a few months all by himself, waiting for Shizuka's return. What he doesn't realize is that she's busy murdering young girls and gutting up their insides. One day she does return when he tries to talk to her. She tells him to get out of her way because she wants to gut up all the people at the animal shelter to find out if Chappie is there. Okay, you've built a monster, Takopi. So to prevent Shizuka from turning fully dark side here, here's what you gotta do. You saw the signposts, they were everywhere. You chose to ignore it because you wanted the girl happy. Here's what you gotta do differently. You've got to prevent a person from having a moral downfall. And the quickest way to do that is a direct confrontation. The friend must voice their concerns directly, from subtle hints to an open conversation about the troubling changes. Of course, Azuma was too much of an emotionally dependent simp, and Takopi was just too dense. But if we're in their shoes, here's what you gotta do. You gotta immediately force Shizuka to face her actions. It externalizes her internal struggle, and would have helped her to look at things twice, and to make sure she doesn't become the monster that she thought Marina was to her. And that's not all. Because quickly following confrontation, you gotta try to remind Shizuka of who she is. Takopi plays a big role here, because despite how much she was suffering, she didn't hesitate to share her food with Takopi. You got to show Shizuka her North Star, and remind her of who she really is. Offer her unconditional support, not unconditional approval. If she decides to come back to the straight and narrow, you'll do everything in your power to help her. But if she decides to go on a killing spree, you tell her stop doing that and do everything in your power to stop her, including calling the cops on her. So finally, what we're gonna do is help Shizuka actually get help. Considering the city has an animal shelter, Azuma with his big brain can get his brother to help them file a formal complaint with child welfare. And once this is done, the state will come and investigate Shizuka's tragic situation and take her away from the self-serving mom and get her linked up with a much better family, ideally. And just like that, Shizuka would be on her way to a better school, better chances, and a better life. Interestingly though, this time, Takopi finally has the balls, and he talks to her with sparks flying out of his eyes until she finally snaps and asks him what should she have done since she was denied by her dad. After a few seconds of existential crisis, she grabs a rock and stabs Takopi over and over again. Shizuka breaks down into tears, asking Takopi what should she have done differently. But the cute little fluffball just holds her hand and admits that he has no idea. And this time, however, he refuses to let her hand go. And he says he's sorry for how useless he has been in not knowing what she's really going through. And somehow he manages to crack through the hard armor. And the girl finally breaks down into real tears like a little child really should. But Takopi's not done though. After realizing that people can be good and bad, he figures out a way to save everyone. Takopi channels the last of his happy powers into his camera one last time. He goes back in time and stops Marina and Shizuka from ever becoming enemies, because they both have memories of him, and he subtly infiltrates Azuma's mind and encourages him to fight with his brother more. And with these subtle changes, Marina and Shizuka become friends. Azuma's mom never pushes him to become the crazy nerd, and everybody lives happily, except for Takopi. The cost of this trip that corrected everything was his own life, and Takopi becomes a distant memory, guiding everyone to a future of happiness as a whisper, and brings this very sad anime to a very happy end.